Hi, it's Vic Highland here. I'm going to talk a little bit today about organising material for a group. I do a lot of coaching of bands, and I run a number of sort of rock bands for schools and things like that. And there are some sort of classic mistakes that when you're coaching people that you're going to see. I mean, the classic thing as the sort of checklist is that people often do things because they feel nervous, and those things become sort of familiar to them, so they think it's okay. So for instance, people will play with their back to the audience, or they'll be looking at the feet or something like that. The easiest way to get around that particular problem is to get somebody to video the band while they're performing, and then have a look at it, the track, and then get people to change their behaviour. Now, they will feel uncomfortable doing that because it's a habit, but then when they see themselves in the second video, when they're sort of looking at the audience, or they're looking up, or they haven't got their back to the audience and the rest of it, it will look better on film. So that's a way of getting people to understand that what they feel like when they perform isn't necessarily the best thing. That's just a habit. So that's one important thing. Another important thing is the way that people listen. Now, I've always sort of think of it that there are three ways of actually listening to music when you're playing. The first one is that you're just listening to yourself. The second one is that you're listening to somebody else. And the third one is that you're listening to the spaces in between people, so it's like the collective. Now, you can always tell when somebody's listening to themselves because they often play out of time, too loud, no sort of real consideration of anybody else. When people are listening to somebody else, there's a tendency for that to mean that when somebody else makes a mistake, they make a mistake as well. They'll often play quietly. In other words, they don't want to drown out the person they're listening to. And in the third state of listening, what happens is people tend to play at the right volume, so they don't drown the singer out, they're in time with the rest of the band, and they often leave more spaces in their playing as well. And that's a sort of interesting psychology, because a lot of people, particularly guitarists, spend a lot of time playing guitar in their bedrooms, so they tend to not be aware of the interplay that goes on with different instruments. So there are a couple of things that you can immediately look at when you're looking at a band and how you can improve. The other thing is there's a tendency for people to use material that's far too complicated initially to start with. Go for songs that are quite simple, because it's about the team effort, not about the fact that there's a great guitar part in this, or there's a terrific drum solo or something. That's generally, from an audience's point of view, is particularly sort of fairly irrelevant. But what isn't irrelevant is the ability for a band to groove together. So when a band is playing and they're in the groove together, it sounds so much better. And there's a sort of an instinctive feel to the music, which comes across to an audience. So there's a few things that would make quite a bit of difference on the outset with a band. So just to recap, if you video and then make the alterations, making sure that people don't do silly things like have their back to the audience and all the rest of it, and then play it back, record it again, and then people can see the difference, so confirming that they need to make changes. And then the second aspect is the different ways of listening. Get people to sort of listen to the collective of the music instead of, and that's a bit of a weird one, but that takes a little while to get, but it does make a lot of difference when it clicks. And then the third thing is choose material that's actually easier to play, so that you actually work as a team. Okay, so try those things out, see how you get on.